Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop with Dr. Stephen Hassan. Can we give Stephen an applause? There he is right there. That's Dr. Stephen Hassan. I'm Dr. John Dehlin, and this is a dream come true for me to be able to be here today, presenting to you all with the myth, the man, the legend, Dr. Stephen Hassan.
Please give me. No pressure.
Before we start, I just want to say that this venue was generously donated. This is not in Pine. This is a wedding reception center here in the heart of Alpine, Utah, and many of you know what that means. But Dylan and Natalie Entz have graciously donated this facility today to keep our costs low. And I just want to welcome Dylan up to just give you all a welcome, maybe tell you a little bit about the venue, and then we'll get started. Dylan?
Thank you. We started a partnership with Mormon Stories over a year ago. We converted this to a wedding venue about 5 years ago, and it's really great to see a good turnout today. I think, as you know, in the heart of Alpine, when we've tried to do events in the past, it's been, people were shy to come out, and what a great turnout. So glad to be a partner with John, and we hope to do many more in the future. So.
The truth is we had quite a robust workshop and retreat enterprise going before COVID. And then when COVID hit, we kind of retooled and amped up the Mormon Stories podcast studios, but we're a little bit off our events game. But I'm pretty confident that the substance of today's today's workshop is going to be very valuable to you. We apologize. We acknowledge that those of you in the back probably can't see the screen very well. We'll do our best to just sort of use the slides as a reference today, but we'll try and make sure and describe things so that you don't have to feel bad that you can't actually read the screen. It's more of a guide for us even than it is for you to be visualizing.
They're not important. We're important. And I apologize. It still says Thrive because we did 2 Thrives yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does everybody know what Thrive is about here?
Have any of you attended Thrive before? So for those who don't know, Thrive is an initiative that we created a few years back to provide communities of healing and growth for people who are struggling with Mormonism and or coming out of Mormonism or other high demand religions. There are Thrive communities throughout the world and throughout Utah, and you can go to thrivebeyondreligion.com. It's not for profit. There's no profit. There's no money motive at all in Thrive. It's literally just to help people get together. We had a Thrive in Lehi yesterday and in Ogden and about 16 other cities across the world. And if you want to check that out, go to thrivebeyondreligion.com.
And the point is to thrive and not just survive, but actually thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we understand that there are some of you who are probably here at some risk. Please raise your hand if you feel like your presence here, if others outside knew about it, could present some risk to you. Will you please raise your hand? Okay.
Or relatives would not be happy. That's
yes.
Not necessarily risk, but also just you'd rather not be on film.
Here's a different way I like to ask this question. How many of you had to lie to someone today to come here? Raise your hand. Hi. If you had to lie? Okay. All right. You get the picture. So if you want to make sure you're not video recorded today, please stay behind the cameras. We're going to be passing the mics around, but we're going to ask that you not speak unless you have a microphone in your hand. So we want a lot of collaboration today, but we're going to ask 2 things: that you have a mic in your hand when you speak to us or to the crowd, and that you come up here and stand facing that way so that you can be captured in the video if you want to. If you don't want your face to be captured, then stay where you are. And if you're okay with your voice being captured, then we'll hand the mic to you. You'll stay where you are, and then we'll stay here in front of the camera. But we'd prefer as much visual participation as possible for the benefit of those who view it later. Does that make sense? Any quick questions about logistics today? Shout really loud.
No, I'm sorry.
Steve has worked really hard to curate content.
Can I just
Yeah.
say, so these slides are actually from my course that's on my website, a foundational course that I really think is a great value. It's not cheap, it's $500. If you're a therapist or a coach, you can get CE credits. But I spent 2 years on this with a social work professor, so I'm trying to earn some money. So, but if you take the course, there's downloadable PDFs of all the slides, and we're working on a workbook that will come out in addition to
And
the
Stephen, if
course.
they want to take a picture of the slides, are you against that?
Probably not, as long as you don't put it online. It's
So you're welcome to
personal
take,
use.
if you want to, if you're interested in the content, sit closer, take a snapshot, do not share online.
It's kind of blurry, though.
Yeah, and that'll be good for you because that will make it less compelling to be shared on the internet. Somehow my projector
good
got
point.
dropped during the COVID time, so I need to get a new projector. Apologize for that. Yeah?
I just want to say, you know, it's not easy fighting multi-billion-dollar cults, and it's, you know, it'd be great if we have like batteries of lawyers that volunteer their time and batteries of people who volunteer and everything, but for those of us who are doing a business thing, that's how I earn my money. So that's all I can say. I'm turning 69 and I'm feeling the need to transmit as much as I can, as fast as I can, to scale out to the planet, because I feel like we're in a crisis in the planetary dimension of authoritarian countries and dictators who want to subvert human rights and women's rights and gay rights and indigenous rights and other minority rights. So there's a battle happening on a very large scale. So I know everybody's here because you want to heal, you want to recover, you want to understand, you want to help your loved ones. And I'm here to learn. So really, because I know a lot more about the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower folks, because they made the effort to educate me. And I think I was last in Utah about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, for the ex-Mormon Foundation that invited me to come out after they saw me, I think, on Dr. Phil when I was helping two young 15-year-old runaways from FLDS, and they did a whole expose, and people were asking me, are the Mormons, you know, a destructive cult? And I said, well, FLDS fits all the criteria. I don't know about the LDS Church. And then the ex-Mormon Foundation, and my friend Paul Murphy, said, come on out to Salt Lake and come meet us. And that began my education about this incredible organization that's been around for so long.
And 20 years is too long to have Stephen away, isn't that right? So we hope to have you back. We hope that
I'd like to come back
this will
already.
be not the first time to have you back. If you're comfortable sharing, if you're currently attending the LDS Church, if you still attend at least once a month, if you're comfortable sharing, please raise your hand just so we can get a sense. Okay. If you still consider yourself an Orthodox or a semi-Orthodox believer and you're comfortable sharing, please raise your hand. Okay, beautiful. Can we give that woman an applause?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and for being vulnerable. One other request I have, because we're going to have people along the spectrum of belief and along the spectrum of participation, I want to request that we do our best to have a respectful discourse. In other words, let's not assume that only intelligent people no longer believe in God. Let's not assume that only faithful, good people do believe in God.
I believe in God.
Absolutely.
Hope I don't alienate any of you.
Let's not assume that the right decision is to leave the church and resign, or that the right decision is to stay. Let's try and speak as respectfully as we can, knowing we're going to have people all along the grade of belief and non-belief, participation and non-participation. We want everyone to feel safe. Now, having said that, there's a tension. I'll get to you in just one second. Having said that, there's a tension between respectful discourse and vulnerability. And for this workshop to be maximally effective today, I speak about vulnerability as the gasoline in the engine of healing and growth. Authenticity and vulnerability leads to intimacy, and intimacy is what leads to meaningful relationships and connection and healing and growth. So we have to find a balance between being respectful, but also being candid. And sometimes, as Stephen likes to remind us, anger is not only a valid emotion, but it's a healthy emotion. So how, if we want to express anger today, how do we do that in a way that is also sensitive to the fact that there are other people here? Do your best to kind of navigate that balance. Is that okay?
And I would say just own it. Just like, I feel anger, because of this or this or this.
Yeah. And try not to speak in any way that would try to, that would be offensive to other marginalized groups or other large groups of people. Speak for yourself. As long as you're speaking for your feelings, your experiences, you're gonna be fine. How many of you consider yourself to be in a mixed faith marriage? Raise your hand if you're in a mixed faith marriage. Okay, so about 10 to 15% maybe. How many of you have resigned from the church or been excommunicated and no longer are members of the church? Okay, maybe 40%. How many of you?
A badge of honor from my point of view.
Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, seriously, think about being a heroic resistor to the point where it's so threatening to an institution that they have to say, they're marked, they're evil, stay away from them. I've been marked, by the way, by that same group I mentioned before, the International Churches of Christ. The leader got up and said, I'm marked. People would, I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they're going.
Are you saying
straight to
excommunication is a mark of honor?
hell. I believe so.
Okay.
A badge of honor. For me, I love heroic resistors. I love that term. Speaking truth to power, saying, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. Very quick comment here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I resigned, so I was marking them for my experience.
That's even better.
Yeah.
That's even better because the power is within you.
And Stephen,
You made the decision, so thank you for saying that.
And Stephen, we'll want to navigate. We're going to be modeling healthy differentiation here. When I run workshops and retreats, I don't like to bring the bias that resignation is the best choice. Because for some people, and Stephen, you said that you want to be educated by us, and we've been talking a bit about this.
Yep.
When you live in a state that is majority, LDS, and where relationships and community and sometimes livelihood and occupation and family relationships are all tied to your membership, resignation or other sorts of, or even being a public spokesperson is a very different reality. And so that's why I don't speak cavalierly about saying resignation is the true choice, or even stopping attending or leaving the church is the true choice. For me, it's such a deeply personal, individualistic decision that in my view, all paths need to be respected.
I think that's great. And honestly, Utah is a very unique situation from my life experiences. I work all around the world with lots of different things. And I was brought to the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union when it fell, to teach about cults. So I was in a country of cult members. So, so I don't have a lot of experience
Yeah.
as you do.
So I may be moderating your sterner propensities today. But
you
that's
know,
good. It's healthy differentiation,
but
right?
here's the deal. You may look up here and we're like big white guys, big, he's taller than me, but we're authority figures on some level, but we don't know the truth with a capital T, and we both are learners. We both have a commitment to learning and growing and healing. So please don't assume, because we're up here saying something, that it's true.
Yeah.
For you, especially.
And to drive that point home even further, we all came from a situation where our locus of control was more external and our authority was more external. And I know that Stephen will join with me very vociferously to say that the model that we're operating from today is to cultivate and develop and enhance your own internal locus of control. You are the authority on your lives. We are just people that have spent some time trying to help people like you. But at the end of the day, we're not authorities. We don't want to be authorities. We
I am
simply
an
want.
authority because I'm an expert witness, so I don't know.
We're not the authorities on your life and your decisions. And we want to make sure you know that, as far as we're concerned, the kingdom of God is within, meaning within you. And we have no desire to be replacement prophets or gurus. Is that okay?
I definitely am not a guru.
Yeah, okay.
And you can admire someone and like someone and be a fan, and it's not a destructive relationship. Like, there are many people I really admire and respect, and I really physically, oh, you're trying to tell me to go higher.
Hold the mic closer.
Be more explicit in your communication, please.
Hold your goddamn
No,
mic
but the
closer to
thing
your
is,
mouth.
that there are people that I'm truly excited to meet, because like Adam Grant, I just flew to San Francisco to try to meet him because I've been listening to his podcast for years and I read all of his books, and damn, he was too busy to meet with me. But I really wanted to meet him and I really wanted to get a picture with him. So anyway, but it's not a bad thing to admire and respect somebody and be into their teachings or whatever.
Well, we admire and respect you, Brother Hassan,
Thank you.
Dr. Hassan. Okay, a couple more questions. How many of you live in Utah County? And this time I'm gonna ask you to stand up. If you live in Utah County, please stand up and look at other people living in Utah County, okay? And what I'm gonna do in a bit is potentially ask people to regroup and to sit by people. How many of you, okay, go ahead and sit back down. How many of you are here would love to meet some friends, some people that you can kind of get to know and have as allies? Okay, that's why I'm asking where you live, because the closer someone lives to you, the easier it is to have a more meaningful relationship. And so I'm gonna be asking people to stand by geography, and then what we're gonna maybe have people do is reshuffle and sit, because we're gonna be having breakout groups throughout the day.
Which will not be recorded.
That's right. And what would be cool would be for people who kind of live close to each other to be able to sit with people who live near them, and that way we can start some friendships or communities. I can absolutely say pretty much every workshop or retreat we've ever held, friendships and sometimes lifelong friendships have come from a day like today. So if that can happen as a result, that'd be wonderful. I can also say that far and away, what we've found is the opportunities that people have to talk and share often outweigh the value of the content that we present here. And that's why we're gonna try and be doing a lot of, a little bit of presentation, a little bit of processing, a little bit of presentation, a little bit of processing. Is that okay? All right, so.
If I can interrupt for a second and just say, often I find people leave intellectually first, and emotionally, it takes them a while to catch up with it. But making emotional connections first opens the door to intellectual perspective.
The intimacy, yeah, and vulnerability, perfect.
We really
Okay.
are emotional beings who rationalize more than we're intellectual beings who have emotions. It's a very important paradigm shift to think about.
Absolutely. How many, let's have you stand up if you're from Alpine. Anybody here from Alpine? That's your old church? Okay. How about Highland? Highland? Stand up. Cedar Hills? Is that next door? Cedar Hills close by? Okay, and then Lehigh. I think that's kind of a little cluster. Any Lehigh people? Okay, you guys all look at each other and you guys can decide if you want to sit together. All right, how about kind of Provo-Orem? Stand up if you're kind of Provo-Orem area. What else is out there? What are some other areas near you guys? How about like Pleasant Grove, Spanish Fork, kind of like in the Provo-Orem, Spanish Fork area? Look around, see if you want to connect with anybody later. Okay, how about Salt Lake County? Let's say West Side, which can be, what are the areas? Like Jordan, West Jordan, South Jordan, Riverton, Daybreak, Bluffdale. You guys look at each other? I think we should have a table for you guys. Okay, how about East Side Salt Lake County, Sandy Draper, Holiday, Cottonwood Heights, Avenues, South Salt Lake. All right, you guys look at each other, look around. Okay, this is good. How about north of Salt Lake? So Ogden, Layton, Weber County, not going all the way to Logan and Cache Valley yet. Okay, you guys look around and see each other. Good. Okay, how about Cache Valley or Idaho? Cache Valley or Idaho? Look around. You guys can speak at the break, get to know each other, right? We need community. How about down south, St. George, Cedar City, south of kind of Utah County? Anybody come up from southern Utah? Okay. What am I forgetting? Vernal? What? Okay, who's not from Utah? Stand up if you're not from Utah and you've come from out of state. All right, where are you guys from? Colorado? Georgia? Washington State?
Wow, cool.
Okay. Boise? Okay. Evanston, Wyoming? Kansas? Colorado? Where? Canada. What
Wow.
part? Calgary. Beautiful. Rhode Island? Northern Ireland.
Ireland.
Whoa! Let's give her a. And she's wearing green. And she's got
I
green
want to
on.
know, are you just happened to be in Utah and heard about it, or you came for this? Really?
Came for this, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, let's give her applause. Yeah.
Wow.
You guys in the back? For where? From where? Colorado? Okay, you already said that. Washington State? Okay, you guys? You already said? Wyoming, okay. All right, any other international? Yes. Oh, Twilla. Yeah, don't forget Twilla. Any Twilla people here? Okay, any other groups that I did not, yes. Wasatch Front? Heber, any Heber Midway people or Park City? Heber Midway, Park City. Sorry. There's like 3 Mormons in Park City these days. But Heber Midway is pretty intense.
So can I just say, I think this is a great idea, what you have, but the logistical mind of what's happening is, how are people going to remember who
So
to
do you guys
this?
want to shuffle and sit by people in your geography?
I think we should do it sooner than later, and I think someone should kind of take the lead and say, Provo, let's meet over here.
Okay,
and
how many of you want to sit by someone near you? Okay, we'll do it after the break. All right.
Okay, so we'll break soon,
Yeah.
and then we'll because I think it's a
in a
really
bit.
great idea, especially in terms of making friends and connections.
Maybe we'll do it after the opening
And
introduction.
we might invite the people who are outside of Utah to meet all together, or if they feel like hanging out with somebody that they've already met and they want to, that's fine too.
Perfect. Okay, raise your hand if you're comfortable sharing. If you identify as a member of the LGBTQ community, please stand up. If you're comfortable sharing, can we give these people applause? Can you guys see each other if you want to be able to connect? Members of the LGBTQ community, thank you for coming. You are very welcome here. We hope to make this a very safe place for you and everyone. Yes? Hey, I know you.
Does that include parents?
That's next. If you are a parent or a sibling or a grandparent of an LGBTQ family member, please stand. Yeah, we can applaud for these people
I'm
too.
standing already.
We honor you. If you consider yourself an ally to the LGBTQ community, please stand up. All right. You're welcome.
And
Okay. Is there any other
who's for women's rights?
feminists? Yeah, woo!
Indigenous rights.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other cluster of people that you would like to connect with today that kind of represent a demography really important to you? Just shout it out. Divorced, people who are divorced, please stand up. Okay, look around. Okay, people who've been divorced. How about, wait, just one sec. You guys got that? Okay, if you're single, please stand up. If you're single, if you consider yourself single, look around. Maybe we could have a little speed dating today, a little bit, if you're interested. Okay, other. That's pretty much everybody. He said people who have a surrounding family that are all still in the church. Raise your hand if your surrounding family is still heavily in the church. That's pretty much everyone. Other really important groups. How long have you been out? How many of you had your faith crisis start within the past 6 months? So stand up if you're relatively new. Can we applaud these people? What the heck are you doing at a workshop with John Dehlin? That is the... I'm just kidding.
I don't like the word faith crisis.
What's that? New Jesus? I'm Mormon Voldemort. I don't know what that makes him. Okay. Any other really important groups? Okay. All right. Yes. Can you speak up, please? Stand up. So people who have been in a mixed orientation marriage? That's a really select group. Is there anybody here who's been in a mixed orientation marriage but didn't know it? I don't think there's anybody, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, this has been great. All right, now that we have a really good sense of here, we want to welcome you all, no matter what your background is. Thank you for coming. Let's have one final round of applause for everybody. We're all glad you're here. I will just say one thing. For those of you who are still in the church, I make it a priority to try and speak as respectfully and as kindly, as compassionately and empathetically about the church when I do workshops and retreats. So that's my commitment to you. Some of you may like that, some of you may not, but that's how I'm going to try and model. And one of the reasons I do that is because almost all of you, how many of you have as a top priority for today learning to communicate better with believing family and friends? Raise your hand. Okay, pretty much everyone. That's one of the most important topics people bring. And if we don't model that here, how does that help you turn around and learn to develop those skills as well? So that's why I prioritize speaking even about leaders of the Mormon Church or believers in the Mormon Church or whatever with as much respect as I can muster. So we will be trying to model that today. Okay, we have one more really important part of this first segment before we take a break. Stephen says that he's here to learn. And so, Steve, we're going to invite you. You can turn off your mic. If you want, you can have a seat right there or on a chair you're comfortable. And what we'd like to do is we would like to invite 30 of you, okay, to come up in front of the audience and spend 1 minute. You're not going to tell your faith crisis story, right? You're not going to tell us what caused you to leave the church and your faith journey, because each time someone does that, it takes 5 to 10 minutes to 13 hours, as you've seen on Mormon Stories. What we are going to ask you to do is to share with Stephen and with me and with the group what your biggest, let's just say, pain point and or skill that you're here to develop or enhance. So if you could leave here today having improved a skill or met a core need, we just want you to spend less than a minute sharing a core reason why you're here today. Is that okay? And and what I'll do is I'm going to sit right here, if you don't mind, just as an audience. You're going to now be an audience member and allow us to tell you a little bit about what we experience, because Stephen hasn't worked a lot with Mormons. He's worked some with Mormons, but he's eager to learn from us. So the purpose is sort of like rapid fire bullet vulnerability, but we welcome you. The floor is now yours, brothers and sisters, to come up and share in 1 minute what the key thing you're struggling with and what you hope to get out of today. And we'll just ask you to just kind of come along here on the side and make a little bit of a line. And we'll have you all take turns. And if you see me kind of like, hey Gretchen, if you see me kind of maybe giving you the eye, it's because you're taking too long. Is that okay? Can you guys raise your left arm to the diagonal and say you'll spend a minute or less? Okay. Yeah, I'll grab that. The time is now yours. I won't say brothers and sisters, I'll say friends. And just come, maybe stand about right here.
My main goal is more to figure out how to be productive in, I don't want to say taking down the Mormon church, not at all, just in helping people. I really like studying psychology and cults and the psychology of influence on my own and not just my family. I want to figure out how to productively do something like John Dehlin, something like, podcasts, books, interviewing people in my own just smaller communities as well as large scale. Yeah, like the most productive ways to do that.
Thank you. And we're allowed to applaud if we want to for each person's contribution.
So my goal is to, when I came into my own authentic self and realized that my happiness and joy was just as important as everybody else's, I grew up as a people pleaser, and I always made my choices based on what other people expected me to do. And as an adult, when I finally realized that's not always the right way, you need to be true to yourself. And I want to help other people come to that same understanding. It's not always about making everybody else happy. It's not always about doing what you're expected to do. It's okay to be your authentic self.
Beautiful, thank you. Hey, it's the Amazing Maven, everybody.
Hello. Okay, I hope I don't. This is like the most painful, I think, situation for me in my life, so I'm already getting emotional about it. I wanted to say thank you for bringing up women's rights, because bodily autonomy, especially reproductive autonomy, is something that's really important to me, especially considering a very tragic death in my family of a just 23-year-old. So I think the reason why I'm here is, my father calls himself pro-life, which I think is a misnomer, but I've had some really distressing conversations with him, and just to be honest, I just see him as somebody that doesn't love me, not enough, at least not as a woman, not as someone that's equal to him, and that, deserves the kinds of rights that he feels very entitled to. And so I haven't spoken to him in a while. He's, I hate to say it, but I kind of see him as a monster. So I'm not sure if I want to try to repair that relationship. I know you spoke on the, it's on the, on Mormon Stories, on one of the episodes you did about love and being able to love people enough. And so it was the first time I kind of thought maybe I don't love my father enough to try to reach past, his things that I don't like. And I don't know if I want to defeat that or if I want to leave it as is. So that's why I'm here today. It's just kind of to see what maybe I can figure out about how far I'm willing to go for someone or go for the relationship with my father. That's it. Thank you.
I would like to resolve my feminine rage that I have from being in a very patriarchal organization, as well as having a very, very strict father. I would really love that. And I would also love to be able to communicate in a way that would be loving to everybody's choices. And right now, there's a lot of anger.
I know Steve does not like the term faith crisis, and I agree with him. I never considered mine to be a faith crisis, but my enlightenment started about 17 years ago, and my wife doubled down, and you would think that in that long I would have it all figured out, but I don't. Not that I haven't made any progress. I have made progress. But what I'm hoping to get from today is a ways to speak with her without causing as much harm as I have in the past, and also the kinds of things that I can say that will be helpful, as well as the things that I could say that would not be helpful.
I feel like I've totally lost my sense of identity. About 2 years ago, one of my kids attempted suicide, and that caused me to move beyond the church. So I lost my identity, which was my primary identity of being a Mormon and being a good mother, and I just have this sense of I have this sense that there's no point to living. I can't find a reason. I mean, my kids, I feel impelled to take care of my kids, and I do a great job, but that's what I want to leave with is either a sense of identity or a clear path to getting there, and a clear path to figuring out what is my reason for living, what difference can I make?
I think the hardest thing for me is feeling crazy, like gaslit or something, like I can't trust my own perceptions. I just feel like I'm feeling and thinking this, but then it's always twisted that I'm wrong. And I'm not seeing things right, and they're always right. They're always right. Yeah. And it's just such a, I don't know, crazy making feeling. And I just want to feel, I want to let that go somehow. It's just so hard in the system.
So I lost everything a year ago when I left the church, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and my ex divorced me over leaving the church, and I had to restart my career in my 40s. And I would like to know how I default into this self-sacrificing mode for the men, like sacrifice for the men, sacrifice your career, sacrifice everything, and I'm having a hard time. Even recently, I was about to self-sacrifice everything again for the men, and how do I reestablish my identity and not feel guilty as a woman for choosing myself and my now new career over the men? Like, how do I, but I feel guilty. I constantly feel guilty because I feel like my whole identity was sacrificing for the men and propping them up because they're the priesthood holders. Like, that is the way that I grow closer to God. Like, I am closer to God as a woman if I'm barefoot and pregnant and making them look good. And as a single mom for 9 years, like that's just really hard to restart everything in my 40s, and having my kids being raised half LDS now, like how do I not feel guilty about having to stand up for myself as a single mom and not feeling like that's being selfish? Because I just feel selfish. I feel like I was indoctrinated to be selfish for putting myself first. Yeah.
At what point is it ethical to try to help someone realize that they're in a cult? I go back and forth between prioritize relationships over belief, and I really want to talk to you, you know? And we loved your episodes that you did last week with your story, and your sister was safe, right? And then your dad said something. And I feel like you might need both. And do I just need to be silent forever? Or can I talk to my family, or is it not worth it? It's just so complicated.
Hi, I'm Jillian. One of the things I'm wanting to deconstruct is the feeling of needing to be perfect. The church taught me that I needed to be perfect in all things. I needed to be the perfect wife, do the dishes, stuff like that. And I'm a huge people pleaser. And I get my RN in about a month. And so I need to get in control of that before I step in the field. And then not to be feeling like I need to be the perfect wife, doing all the dishes, stuff like that, because I was taught that I need to do everything perfect, so I'm really hard on myself, so I'd like to deconstruct that.
Steve, thanks for coming. My name's Phil. Thanks for putting this on, guys. So the reason I'm here is I really want to have a better understanding and more empathy for those that stay, and I reflect on myself and why I stayed for so long, but I just want to understand that better, but also to help understand how to help people come out. And I've found so much more peace and happiness and joy, and I think that's foundational to why I'm here and why a lot of people are here. So thanks for coming.
Hi, I'm Haley. I'm a student at the U studying social work, and I hope to become a therapist one of these days. My goal in coming here today was to find some nuggets to help me in my studies and with future clients. I hope to be able to work with LGBT kids here in Utah and their families. So one of the big stumbling blocks is LDS parents accepting their LGBT kids. I was fortunate enough to leave the church before all three of my kids came out. And so it's still a struggle with a lot of the messaging that I grew up with. But I would love to be able to help my future clients with their relationships and how to talk to each other as they're going through these transitions. So thank you.
My name is Travis Spencer. I'm a registered nurse, and the reason I'm here is twofold. First, getting past the patriarchy and that authoritarianism that I grew up in and raising my family. And then the second is really working through shame and guilt and the weaponizing that the church uses of that. So.
So for me, the one thing that I wanted to take away was after having 100% of my identity and my life's mission being super connected to the church, for me it was my patriarchal blessing. It was just, I read it every day. It was this huge thing for me, right? I want to rebuild who I am as a person and what my life's mission is. Independent of that, just for me as a person. So.
I'm Gretchen Day. I was actually on Mormon Stories with John right at the beginning of 2020, February end. And on that Mormon Stories, I was there because I had contacted Stephen Hassan and said, why am I 46 and just realizing I just got out of a cult? Why is there not a kid's book for this? And I end up writing, it's called Protecting Children from Unethical Persuasion, right? Here's first time we met in person. So I was like, I need a picture of you with the book. So Stephen, this is based on Stephen Hassan's work, but for kids. And he endorsed it. And this is the first time I've ever been in the same room as him. So I'm so excited. After that Mormon Stories interview, I've lost most of my friends and most of my family. I've been going through a 2-year divorce, still in a custody battle, and that custody battle I've read your dissertation. I used it in a graduate course 2 weeks ago. His dissertation on the BITE model is why are we not getting experts in the field taking some type of model that can be used in the court system? Because I have been investigated 3 different times by CPS, and my first charge was ever since she left the Mormon church. She began drinking heavily, which I didn't. It was like 1 glass of wine. She began being promiscuous because I post bikini pictures online. She began serial dating. Apparently after 26 years of marriage, you can only date 1 person at a time. The point is, for 2 fucking years, I have been defending myself for being a good mother. I have 8 children. 2 of them are suicidal, bipolar, high, non-functioning adult kids. And the fact that I resigned from the church has been used against me in the fucking court system. And in your dissertation, you talk about businesses, companies, everything has some sort of informed consent, especially when they're collecting money. But churches are exempt, and it just shouldn't be like that. And so what I hope to get from this or from maybe work with you at some point, when I do my graduate final project, I'd love to take the BITE model and do like what you said in your dissertation. Your mentor said we need to have more and more empirical research, that this is important, because especially in the state of the Utah where my judge is Mormon, or the commissioner's Mormon, or the fucking evaluator's Mormon, and I'm just constantly asking stupid questions that have nothing to do with my motherhood, there needs to be a guideline that we use to say, not only was I in a coercive control group and it was okay for me to leave, but I was in a coercive control marriage, and it's okay for me to stand up. That's what I'm here for.
So for me, the last few years, I've had a lot of experiences with people who really, it's like they have their preconceived notions, their preconceived mindsets and beliefs, and I feel like a lot of times people aren't listening, people aren't asking questions, they're judging, they're assuming. Like, instead of being like, who are you? What's your story? People that are closest to me. And that's been really hard. And sometimes it feels like I have to, like, not literally, like, yell and raise my voice and scream, but it's like, I feel like I have to really, like, put up a fight to be heard. And, like, by my parents, by my grandma, by, people close to me, people that have been close to me my whole life. And I would really love to just try to learn, how to navigate those situations with grace, with kindness, with an open mind. Because, it's when people put walls, it's easy to want to put walls. But I want to be able to navigate that with maturity.
I'm here mainly to come to a place where I can trust myself. I think that when John talked about in the very beginning the locus of control being external rather than internal, as long as I can remember growing up in the church, I grew up in a very chaotic household, and the church was like my refuge. It was my place of peace. It was what was going to give me the life that would get me through. and where I would find happiness and joy and all of the things. You know, I was promised that everything would be butterflies and rainbows, and sure, things are good. Things have been better since I resigned from the church for me, but I do feel lost, and I do feel like I'm like a self-help addict. I don't know me. And I'd like to be able, through this, to be able to find me and trust me. Because we've been out of the church, I don't know, for a long time. And I still can't get past not knowing who I am. So that's why I'm here. I want to find me, and maybe this will help me trust myself.
So similarly, I grew up in an abusive household, and the church was a safety for me growing up, and it was all the good, and it was a parent figure for me, actually. And all my leaders were very parental figures when my parents weren't, and I trusted it all my life, and then it became an unsafe place for me all of a sudden, and so I relied on that external locus of safety. And so I don't feel safe anymore in my own body. And I am here to just not get all the safety, but maybe if I could just feel a little safer in my own person, that is why I'm here.
Hi, I'm also a graduate student in social work, and I someday, soon, want to do coercive control recovery therapy. I'm also co-parenting a trans teen, and I want to help make this area a safe place for them. So that's why I'm here today, to get some dialogue. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. I am here because I want to help. I struggle with how people in the church, my closest family, my friends, my neighbors, everyone around me, how a lot of people view those of us that leave. And I'm kind of sad how I reacted 6 years ago when my husband left, and I'm sad at people that think that I am following Satan or have, that I'm being misled. And I want to learn how to help other people like me. I felt so alone in all of this, and I felt so isolated, and I know that there are other people out there that feel like that, and I just want to be able to be open and loving and kind and hear people the way that I am craving to be heard and understood. And I also have a nephew that identifies as trans, and I am just dying to make this place safe for him as well. So those are the things that I want, at least some of them.
Hello, my name is Andrew Steele. My purposes for being here are twofold, and it has to do with my identity and reforming my identity now that I've left the church, but also managing my relationships. So I had my enlightenment when I was a year from graduation at BYU, and I had to keep that under wraps in order to graduate. And now that I've graduated, even though that I live in Washington State, a large portion of my professional and industry-specific relationships are tied back to my my BYU alumni network. And just being able to manage that relationship and those various relationships as it relates to my professional career development. During that time at BYU, it was very difficult, and John, your podcasts were very instrumental to me in being able to make it through that rough time, and I appreciate that. I come from a long identity of Mormon pioneers, and that was a huge part of my identity. So leaving the church was difficult to me in as much as I had to kind of realize how intersected belief and identity and ethnicity and culture were, and I didn't realize it until that time. So there's still portions that I keep and I want to keep, but I don't want to feel guilty as I try to kind of divorce the belief aspect from my heritage aspect. And so understanding that intersectionality of identity is another purpose.
So I'm here, first of all, because, Stephen, you're responsible for my wife leaving the church. We came across the BITE model, and it deconstructed her just like that, but which is great. But also, I heard you speaking on Thursday and kind of realized that I don't know who I am, really. You know, I grew up in the church, went on a mission, got married early, and then it's like, who am I now? I kind of feel like I left pieces of my soul in Horcruxes throughout my life, and I just have no soul now, and I just really, I don't know who I am, don't know what I like, I just don't, feels like the old me died, so.
That's a Harry Potter reference.
Yes, yeah, Voldemort. So, yeah, I would just love to.
I would know about Horcruxes.
Yeah, love to get back to who I was, or whoever that was, so thanks for being here.
So I come from a lot of people here have come from an environment where they felt like they came from I'm guessing this, they came from a picture perfect environment. They had all the things that they were supposed to have. They crossed off the checklist that he just went through really well. They had a really supportive, really good environment, like an actually good, healthy family structure that happened to be Latter-day Saint. That's what I feel like I had, and that's what I feel like I still have. And sometimes it's difficult for me to reconcile the problems that I have with how nice the world around me is. Like, I still live in a really nice Latter-day Saint lifestyle. Like, I have a family that I'm really close to, and our relationships are really solid, and the fact that me and some other family members are struggling with our faith isn't driving them away from us like it has for so many other people who aren't as fortunate as me. I've also recently come off of my mission. Like less than 6 months ago, I got back from my mission, and it's just been a very sharp turn for me since then. And what I'm trying to get out of this is how do I reconcile how nice my world is because of the beliefs that I've always held and that the people in my family hold and that my relationships have. How do I reconcile all that good with the harm that I see happening to other people and really not me at all? And how do I maintain my credibility as a person to all the people that I met on my mission very recently, who very recently saw me at my strongest belief point? How do I maintain my credibility as a person to them and to the other people that I'm not going to be going to BYU with like I always planned? Or like I'm not going to be, when I revisit them on my mission, which is a lot easier for me to do than some other missionaries because it's only in Missouri, but like, how do I, when I have that reunion with them, like how do I maintain my credibility as a person?
So I watched the Mormon stories with Dr. Hassan and John Dehlin, and one of the things that really struck me was John Dehlin keeps saying us and our when he's talking about the Mormons. And I do that too. Dr. Hassan had called him out, and I do that too, and I don't know how to navigate
when it's something that is generations back on both sides, and your neighborhoods that you grew up in, and your friends, and your college, and your like everything, your neighbors. How do you maintain this us, and also you're not part of it? Like, it's a very tricky kind of place to be, and I have questions.
Hi. My question is how to feel like I'm still a good person within my family, specifically with my kids. I have 3 kids that are 8, 10, and 12. My son just got ordained. He just went and did baptisms in the temple for the dead recently. He's passing the sacrament, and I go to church every Sunday so that I can still be the mom that is seen as somebody who has values and morals and that they'll come to and talk to. Even though I cry every time I go to, this is my first Sunday not going to church so that I could be here. What is the ethical thing to do with children? Navigating a mixed faith marriage is one thing, but I went to your thing on Thursday night and I feel a sense of urgency now to pull my kids out before they experience the harm that I did. What do you do with that? That's my question.
Can we please give everyone who was able to disclose today a round of applause? So, Stephen, I'm going to ask you on the fly to think about just 3 quick reflections you have on what you just heard, and you don't have to answer yet, but I'm going to give you just a little bit of notice to kind of pull those together, because we would love to hear some reflections of yours in a second, not right now, but in a second. I want to give you a little bit of time. So, really quickly, Stephen and I put together a kind of a schema of some topics that we might cover today. One of our priorities was to customize today's presentation to be of maximal value to you. And so I'm going to just read off some of the topics that either we just heard or that we had planned to discuss, because we're not going to be able to get to them all in a substantive way. And I'm just going to look for a show of hands so that we can pick maybe 3 to 4 big ones to make sure we cover today. Is that okay? Yes, where do I have a hand? Okay, all right. So here's some of the options that we have. One is to have Stephen give an introduction to the BITE model and to the influence continuum and to the core of his work. How many of you would like to hear Stephen introduce to you the core of his work? Raise your hand really. Oh, you want me to read him first? Okay, that's one option. A second option that we have is identity. So who am I? How do I rebuild an identity? Okay, that's a second one. The third one is communicating with believing family and friends. Okay, that's a third topic that we have. A fourth is dealing with trauma and triggers and mind control and conditioning. And that's slightly different than the BITE model and the influence continuum, because it's about how to reprogram your brain after you've disconnected or stopped believing in some way. We also have healthy spirituality, so how to rediscover a sense of spirituality for yourself that could very much be a secular spirituality. We're not necessarily talking about angels and spirits and metaphysical stuff, but a mental, kind of a secular or a non-secular spirituality. Stephen attends a synagogue regularly as an attending Jew. Another option is principles of mental health, sort of some foundations of mental health. Those are some of the key topics that Stephen and I identified. Stephen, is there another topic you would add to that if we were just going to give them 3 or 4 to focus on today? Did we hit the main ones? Is there any other that's jumping out at you before we have you give your reflections.
I guess I do have a reflection based on everything.
We're going to come back to that in just 1 second.
Then based on that, then I think I'm okay with
Okay.
all of those.
So I'm gonna ask for votes. You vote for 3. Don't vote for more than 3, okay? Or you'll make it confusing. All right, an introduction to the BITE model and the influence continuum in Stephen's work. Please raise your hand super high. Okay, that looks very popular, probably 2/3. Okay, the next one is communicating with believing family and friends. Okay, that looks very popular. Okay, the next one is conditioning, trauma, triggers, and phobias. Raise your hand really high. Okay, thank you. The next one is healthy spirituality. Okay, a little bit less for that. And then the next one is identity formation. Okay, and then the next one is principles of mental health. Okay, a little bit less, but that's still substantive. Okay, that's super helpful. And so what we'll do is we're going to hear just a few brief reflections from Steve on what insights or reflections he has from what he just heard. Then we're going to take a little bit of break, and then we're going to jump into what I think will be your overview of the BITE model and the influence continuum as our first segment.
Yeah, just tell me how many minutes I have now.
Totally. Oh, right now?
Right now.
Let's just say 10.
Okay, because I could do an hour easily.
Of course.
Okay.
But we're up for a break. So
Okay.
let's do 10, and then we'll come back.
Okay, so I guess what I want to start with is just identifying that my life orientation to this topic is very different than all of yours, because I grew up in a family, conservative Jewish, intact family, lived in the same place. My parents didn't drink or smoke or have affairs or gamble. Boring. And then I got recruited at 19. I spent 2.5 years in the Moonies, had a very traumatic exit. So everything 47 years after that was based on very short, relatively, mind control experience. It was total, but it was still very short. And it's very different from what I'm hearing from everybody's lived experiences. So I want to be very clear that I can tell you what I've learned, and I keep learning over the decades, and I keep learning new psychological models and new understandings about how the mind works and new things about social psychology. And it's an amazing time to live, actually, because we're learning so much, so that I don't think it requires 10 years to recover, even if you were in for 60 years. I don't think it takes 10 years to recover once you understand that you don't want to be there, that it's based on a lie, it's dysfunctional, it's authoritarian. And so I actually believe that if one makes a determination to really learn the toolkits, do the self-reflection, the honesty work, get therapy with people who are trained to do it, that really you should be looking at a year as the major healing period, not. But what complicates it is when you have family and friends that you're interacting with. That's always going to slow people's psychological progress down significantly. And I need you to know, I have the most experience with cults like the Moonies, Scientology, Jehovah's Witnesses, other cults. And certainly none of them have a state, you know. And so many millions of people and so many politicians and high-ranking business people. So what I want to say is you have to each figure out what will work for you personally. You can hear other people's stories and what works for them, but in the end, I really want to encourage everyone to think about, I'm smart, I will figure it out. I need to learn to trust myself. I need to learn, about my mind and how to repair my own mind and how to learn and adopt a learner's growing mindset and make mistakes. It's human. And somebody talked about perfectionism and people pleasing. That's not unique to the Mormon experience, I can tell you. This is global. This is what I will describe later. My mentor, Robert Lifton, when he was studying Chinese communist brainwashing, he called the demand for purity was one of the criteria of brainwashing. This perfectionism standard where you can never be that, so you're always feeling less than, guilty, shaming, etc. So that's a global mental health belief problem that needs to be fixed, in my opinion. My heart goes out to everyone who shared, and so much pain, and I'm so grateful that you're here, that you have the bravery, and that you made this opportunity happen for people. And what I want to make sure is that by the end of the day, everyone's leaving here feeling stronger or more grounded, clearer, more integrated. So I'm going to ask each one of you to be accountable to yourself. And if you're not feeling that you're in that arc, come and talk to me separately during a break, because I want to identify what's in the way. What am I not saying, or what do you need to hear, or what do you need to experience? I also want to offer a technique that one of my teachers taught me, Dan Brown, one of the world's forensic psychologists, foremost forensic psychologist. He co-wrote a book called Memory, Trauma, Treatment, and the Law, and he was the leading expert witness for the people who were sexual victims of Catholic priests. The Catholic Church put $2 million bounty for anyone who could disprove him in a court of law, and couldn't. And he shared a technique with me that's wonderful, a referential scale that one can create from 1 to 10. It can be a visual representation like a thermometer. It can be horizontal. You can make it colorful. You can personalize it. But for example, and you can apply a 1 to 10 for anything. So for example, being resourceful, like if you think about when you were the least resourceful, what number would you give it? And if you think back about your entire life, when you felt the most resourceful, what number would you give that? And most importantly, something you can ask yourself throughout the day is like, what number am I right now? And just like really do a self-reflection. You have to be in your body to do this, by the way. This is not a mental exercise. This is a being exercise. And I'm saying this technique early on in the workshop because, as you'll hear, mind control, coercive persuasion, brainwashing, thought reform is considered a dissociative disorder, meaning we're separated from our body. There's a disconnection between our mind and our body. Recovery is being in your body, fully present in the here and now, and not just here with your frontal cortex as you're analyzing things, or here being very emotional and reactive, but also here feeling your heart and in your gut too. So I think good psychological mental health is body-centered, and I've been talking about this a lot the last few days. Think of humans as embodied minds. And here's where I have an issue with a bunch of the major world religions, especially the ones that taught or teaches that your body is evil and you shouldn't give it any credibility, or you should punish it or torture it, or your natural impulses are wrong or from evil spirits. I come from a Jewish orientation. We don't believe in original sin and that split between mind and body at all. So again, I'm giving you my bias, but also my bias as a therapist for decades and decades. I really think the healthy healing mode is to really be fully present in the here and now, in your body. I'm a big fan of therapeutic full body massage, for example, as one of the techniques to help reclaim that this is my body. And what I say to my clients when I refer them to a trained massage person is don't space out when you're on the table, but when the therapist is working on your thigh, like pay attention to the tenseness in your thigh and how your thigh gets to relax. Like really become aware of when you're tense and relaxed. But back to the 1 to 10 thing, you can apply it to anything, but so if you, I'm going to ask you just all of you to take a moment and think in terms of how resourceful you're feeling right now. Give yourself a number, and then ask yourself, what do I need to learn, or what do I need to feel, or what needs to happen, what experience to bring it up a number. You don't have to go all the way up to the top, but bring it up a number. Yes. What do I mean by resourceful? Good question. It's a state of being. Now, you've asked me to reflect on what I mean to myself when I'm meaning resourceful. When I feel confidence, when I feel secure, when I feel integrated, when I feel fully present, and part of this is a lack of, I'm not feeling traumatized, I'm not feeling phobic, I'm not feeling less than, or that I need to please someone else, or I'm really anchored in myself, I have an internal locus of control, and where I have an attitude of can do, no matter what comes at me. I may not know how to deal with it, but I'll figure it out and have the confidence that I can figure it out, or I can ask my friends and my resources, hey, how do you do this? I'm not alone. So, and that's another thing. Human beings are social beings. Like, this is a really important thing. In American culture, people are like, rugged individuality. It's like, that's BS. Human beings have survived as a species so successfully because we're cooperators, because we have language, because we tell stories to each other. Hey, don't go there, there's a snake, don't go down there. Or, hey, bad weather's coming in another day, watch out. We need each other, but we need good, I know I'm gonna stop soon, but I can go for a long time. We need information, right? We need accurate, honest information. I want to come back to honesty as another piece of that, like really being honest. And I'll say a couple more words and then I'll shut up for now. But a lot of my clients are very fragmented in their psyche, in their identity. In fact, in my second book, and Craig has my second book that's out of print, Releasing the Bonds, but I actually did an analysis of what parts of my psyche made up my Mooney identity. He's holding it up. So I actually realized that the Mooney identity didn't come out of thin air, but they were actually child parts of mine that had been resurrected, co-opted, and indoctrinated to become a good Mooney. Because indeed, in the Moon cult, Moon presented himself as the true parent, the true father, and his wife was a true mother, and my parents were satanic. They were just my physical parents. So there was this whole thing about younger parts of me that got co-opted, but it also gave me insight into helping people when they exit, is they need to reclaim their child parts and re-own them. Like, I don't know any human being, and here's the universal child vulnerable part, I don't know any human being that didn't at some early point in their life realize that mom and dad weren't perfect, and they didn't know everything, and they couldn't keep us safe from everything. And a very young child part gets disillusioned. They're supposed to do everything, right? But it's that early child part, I think, is the part that all mind control cult leaders appeal to. I know the truth, trust me. You know, that certainty. I can keep you safe. I know everything in the future, blah, blah, blah. Of course, I haven't met any human being that can, other than malignant narcissists who lie all the time. Anyway, did I answer your question about resourceful? But I really want you to take ownership of your own life. When people say, I don't know who I am, I often say, I get you, but who do you want to be? Like, who do you want to be? Decide. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, so you want us to be resourceful, like, overall in our lives, or, like, is that how we're more easy to learn now?
No, I'm offering a technique for the rest of your lives. It's, you know, and you can disregard my suggestion or come up with a better technique. But it's just creating a scale of really, you know, when you knocked it out of the park, or you really, you know, had a phobic attack and ran out of the hall and couldn't give that talk. Like, make a scale, but then you can start calibrating and trusting your judgment and refining your judgment, and then tuning into what are the factors that make me more resourceful? What are the factors that make me less resourceful? When I'm with these people, I feel more resourceful. When I'm with these people, I feel less resourceful. And then as you understand that toolkit for resourcefulness, for everybody who wants to have more resourcefulness in talking with people inside the church, you can translate and carry over that toolkit and do rehearsals in your mind of bringing those capabilities. I'm going to give you a quick example therapeutically. Someone who says, I have no confidence at all, Steve. And I'm like, really? Yep, I have no feeling of confidence. I'm like, huh, so tell me more about your life. What do you do? Well, I work with little kids. So when you're in your classroom working with little kids, you don't feel any confidence? Oh, no, I feel confident there. And then I'm like, oh, so you do have confidence. It's just contextualized to that classroom. But if you can feel that state of confidence there, you can then learn how to develop it in other contexts too. You don't need to keep them compartmentalized. Life is growth. I feel like I'm going on too long. Am I?
Let's have you finish reflecting on the things you heard, and then we'll start into your presentation after the break.
I want to, I'm thinking of, if I had my way, if we could do it over again, I would be able to respond to each person, and we did, you know, but that's the past, and that's another thing. Be in the present. Don't spend a lot of time, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but like, what do we want to do? I talked about the people pleasing, the identity. The identity is like, when do you feel the most you? What do you most enjoy doing? What feels fulfilling. And I guess I also want to say that we use beliefs as filters for interpreting reality. And when you grow up in an organization that tells you so with such minute detail and has all these rituals, etc., how to experience reality, and then you take off the goggles and go, wait a minute, these are goggles, this isn't reality, these are just goggles. Now, how do I develop a way to sort all these experiences coming in? And what I found very useful for folks is to hang out with people who've left years earlier, who have a really successful, thriving life, and like think about modeling. Like, what is it that they did that worked for them? It may not work for you, but you might pick this technique out from this person's experience and that technique out from another person's experience. And the other thing that I've learned as a universal is that if I'm talking to a Moonie, it's much easier to talk to them about a different cult at first than the Moonies. And for ex-Mormons, I really want to encourage you to learn more about the Watchtower Society and Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you don't know anything about the Watchtower Society of the Jehovah's Witnesses, you can start with some of my blog interviews with ex-members, but there's a lot of websites out there. But it's so much easier to see how effed up the Watchtower is, and then go, how is our church different than that? They actually do the same patterns, the same BITE, behavior, information, thought, and emotional control patterns. And to just say, you know, it's crappy that we were born into this or that we had to experience this, but now we're free, or at least now the frames are disappearing and we're getting a chance to really be free and to have the joy and experience the awe of being alive, being human, and to experience genuine love. And this is another key theme for me, that when you're in a mind control group, the love of everybody there is conditional upon you believing and obeying and doing what everyone else wants. And that for me is not genuine love. Love is based on beingness, for accepting you for who you are, with your frailties, with your disagreements and beliefs, but just genuinely appreciating someone's humanity. And that's what I encourage people to access in themselves. Love yourself, and then you can be in a position to love people who are still trapped. How's that?
All right, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve. We're going to take a quick break. Is this something? Well, can you speak in the microphone?
Absolutely. Speak in the microphone. So, Stephen, I wanted to comment on what you just said. My experience, my wife started this journey before I did, and one of the things she did out. We started in, we were born in, but she went to Christian fundamentalists and watched some of their deconstruction. And that was something that we could safely discuss together, because that wasn't directly a challenge to where I was still at. And as she began that journey, it was a safe place for us, being at different moments, to talk about and transition. And it was safer for her in the first place. I didn't feel directly threatened, but that piece of advice is super, super valuable in our experience and in our lives.
That's awesome. And to be honest, when I got into the Moonies, I didn't really know anything about Christianity or any other religion than the one that I had been raised in. And in my coming out and trying to figure out what do I believe now, I really needed to learn. What do Christians believe? What do Jewish scholars believe? What do Muslim scholars believe? I highly recommend a book by a Catholic convent runaway named Karen Armstrong, who ran away from a convent, became a world scholar of religion. She wrote a book called The History of God. It's big, I warn you, but it will really give you a perspective on humanity's evolution in terms of how people have engaged with reality in terms of the divine. And so, and honestly, whatever works for you. And for some people, it's much more comforting to leave one group and go to another group as a stepping stone, like coming out of the Moonies and becoming a fundamentalist Christian, or out of the JWs and becoming a fundamentalist Christian. But keep questioning and learn and grow. And don't get stuck in any belief system.
All right. Thank you, Steve, for those reactions. Thanks, everyone, for your contributions. Let's take a 10-minute break. Feel free to find somebody that you connected with in the introductions or geographically or whatever.